Here's Katie. Hey,
Hey,
Katie.
Hey, how are you
How's it
guys?
going?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing good. We're just waiting for. Oh, there she is. Yay!
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Sydney.
Hey, everybody. I'm so
Hi,
sorry I'm running late.
Sydney.
No, no worries, no worries. We were just thinking, like, this meeting might be hard if we don't get Sydney in here because kind of relying on her for this whole thing.
Don't
But
worry.
no worries at all.
Part of the reason why I'm late is that I had this unbelievable fear that I was going to sleep through it. And so I was waking up at different times of night and I didn't.
Oh no!
And so, like, I had a really slow start to the morning just because of my unbelievable fear that that I was going to wake up and it's going to be like 8:40 and you guys would have been meeting and I wasn't there.
Oh man,
that's
yeah.
so funny.
I don't want penny chats to be like a source of stress for people. It would be like the opposite of what we're
I don't
going
think
for.
it's a source of stress for most people. I have a
I thought
problem.
I got rid of the stress when I graduated.
um, okay, I'm sharing this doc with everybody. Feel free to ignore it. Feel free to use it for your notes. I think it's just nice to have kind of little place to take notes, and then you can look back on it over time. And if you guys want to write follow-ups, it's a good place to kind of follow along with that. So I just sent that in the chat. And I've got about till 8:50, and then I'll have to transition to the regular work day. So that's what it's going to look like for me. But overall, what I was thinking is we could just take a look at the two different pieces of software and just talk about it, whatever thoughts you guys have. My motivation for this was just to be able to tap into some other people and other people's brains and kind of learn a little bit more about what makes really good design versus less good design. So pretty relaxed, and I hope that everyone kind of just joins in the conversation. And the other thing is Colin is recording this so that we can share it with the group. Is everyone cool with that?
Yeah.
All right, good deal. So Sydney, would you mind sharing if you have the two-piece software? We can start with either one, whatever you think would be a better place to start.
Yeah. Let's see here. I've never used Google Meets before, so please hold.
Oh, no. There
Uh,
should be a present now button on the bottom right.
I was trying to go through the options and make sure that it's like your entire screen or a window or a Chrome tab. Can you guys?
Yeah.
It says that I'm presenting. Can y'all see it?
Yep, it's perfect.
Okay, cool. Well, we could go from the old into the new because
Yeah, that sounds good.
this is our old Pivotal. We no longer use it, and so this is what we started with. They're all started the way that it usually looks when I open it. So yeah, did you guys want to ask me to click on stuff, or I'll walk you through, or what's the best way?
I would just kind of be curious, like what your experience was like using this software, even thinking about it before you kind of switched over to Monday, and maybe like things that you liked about it versus pain points. We don't have to go through every part of it. But...
So starting from the beginning, I didn't know that there was epics. And that had never been brought up as a tool when we were kind of being slightly shown it by the previous CTO. And so to give some background, I am on a two-person team, and the previous tech team was like 10 to 12 people, and they went on to start a sister company. And so we were brought on to kind of keep the ship going at Studio Now. So we were kind of like sailing a ship by only kind of using the books that were left by the person who sailed the ship before. So when we first inherited this Pivotal, it looked like this. So we only had our icebox and our backlog, and we really didn't have anything brought over. So it took a while for us to figure out like what an iteration backlog was, what velocity meant, and it was really hard to keep the velocity up. Like velocity is supposed to be something that calculates how much you can feasibly do in a sprint. But if you're not breaking up your tickets enough, and if you're not closing them in the cycle that you're supposed to be closing them, that velocity will go down to almost nothing, no matter how much work you're doing. So that was a pain point, was figuring out velocity. Putting things into this backlog was very confusing because it was really hard to keep track at first what our release schedule was, because we were still trying to figure out our sprints, and this is unchangeable. It is calculated based off of this, and there's no way to change as far as I can tell. Oh, I guess I can. Actually, I didn't even know I could change this until this moment. Case in point. I didn't know I could even click on that. But yeah, it was hard to visually be able to see what we were working on, or like what needed to happen next. It just became like a crazy list, and these would close and we would never think about them again. And then we'd be like, oh yeah, we have these down here. And the icebox, we started moving around based off of what was the thing that we most needed to do. Each one of them has information on them. Like, is it a feature, a bug, or a chore? That's what those symbols are. I remember somebody had mentioned, like, what are these? Yeah, that's what it's supposed to symbolize. And then you use points to try to estimate how long it's going to take you, and then descriptions and labels, which we eventually were like, okay, we could use this for like labeling something that's in release or something that's already gone out, but that took a while to kind of get our arms around. And now, once, literally 2 weeks before we decided to move to Monday, I realized that what you're supposed to do is epics. So some of these labels, like notes feature version 2, those are related to an epic. And then if you click this on the epic, it will open up everything in that epic, and will confusingly try to tell you this is an icebox story, a backlog story, and I think it will tell you if something's ongoing. I think that's what we have here, but it was not. I did not learn that until after. Like, I had been like 6 months of unsuccessfully really using Pivotal, and only because I dug in and was like, we have to make this work. So
go ahead,
sorry.
Adam.
I was just going to say, it's interesting. I think one of the important parts of effective UX is discoverability. And I mean, like you just demonstrated, there's so many features just buried within things that look like labels. Like, it does not at all look like I could click that date to change anything, you know, on those, like, how am I supposed to know I can click that? And if I do click it, how am I supposed to even know what that means? So, you know, the fact that a lot of these features are what I would say undiscoverable probably led to a lot of your frustration of not being able to really know, like, oh, cool, epics. I didn't know that was a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to kind of ask, like, based on what you're explaining, it sounds like a lot of it is unclear just what exactly you can do or how you're supposed to do things. And I was kind of curious, like, what your thoughts are, like, what choices that they made that difficult for you? Like, what about the interface makes it difficult to, like, discover those things?
See, that's what I was wondering when I was trying to compare it in my head to Monday is I was like, is it Monday just easier for me to figure out because I started a new account on I started my own account on Monday, and when I opened it up, it had already a couple of things to be like, hey, like here's some stuff, and it's like a reminder of like cool features or like, and this definitely didn't. And I don't know if it's because the team had this account for so long and it just assumed that I wouldn't need it, but it just doesn't have any. It's not very good at suggesting to you or telling you like what something does
Yeah.
that I feel like Monday did, and I'm not sure.
If I might make a suggestion, personally, when I look at this, one of the things that immediately comes to mind is like the purpose of the view that you're looking at. So first of all, a tool that I believe is older and probably more popular than Pivotal is Trello, and they became very, very popular with this whole columns method. When I see columns, for right or for wrong, I automatically assume that each of these columns is related in such a way that I can drag items between the columns. But you can tell that, yeah, there's some sort of relationship here between, your current iteration, your Icebox, your epics. Like they are loosely related, but it's certainly not, I'm gonna drag something from the current iteration directly into an epic, right? We're looking at, in one column, you have high level grouped organization of tasks. And then in another column, you have the tasks themselves. So it wouldn't make sense that you're actually just dragging them over. So I think that a lot of confusion, especially in this particular view, comes from the point of just doing too much with a single view. You're trying to show me my backlog. You're showing me details of an epic, which should be its own screen, altogether. And so it's not opinionated enough. It's not opinionated on how these things should work together,
Because literally, as you were talking, I was like, "Oh, yeah, you should be able to drag and drop." And then I was able to drag and drop, but because it seemed like I had to do labels, I never thought to even drag and drop it over.
Yeah.
I'm literally learning things about Pivotal as we're speaking about it, and I've been using this for 8 months now.
Yeah. I think they mostly suffer from trying to jam too many features into too small of a space. It looks like they were kind of afraid to maybe provide some alternate view options.
Yeah.
Which is tough. It's tough to say like, oh, this is specifically how this view is meant to be made. We've got too much. Let's break it onto its own separate view or provide additional context hints. Like sometimes it's hard to do that, but it's something that you have to do if you want to keep your views from getting too convoluted.
Yeah. I also just found that I wasn't able to visually group things in the way that I felt like I wanted to. Like I like grouping things that get the putting little labels on things. For some reason, that doesn't visually separate it enough. All these labels look the same, and same with this. Like I would put a label on something that's like release whatever, and they'd be next to each other, but maybe something underneath it would be slated for the next release, and there's no visual difference between them, and so it's all the same colored blob for me. I can't quickly differentiate without reading.
Yeah, it does seem super crowded. Like others say, like, okay, they're jamming too many things into one screen. And I guess you can configure a little bit, like you can maybe move your columns around and close columns or open them up, but it's really hard to tell the order of things. Kind of going back to like that expectation that Adam mentioned, when I see columns, I'm also thinking like from left to right, things are moving kind of forward down a pipeline.
Yes.
And this doesn't seem to be the case because like you have your epics in a column and you're not going to move things from an icebox to an epic. So their choices on what like their format kind of are confusing.
I would also just say, like, in general, it just seems hard to, like, know where to start when you look at this. Because, like, when I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm gonna get something done, I see these yellow tasks, and then outside of that, I have no clue where I would even go from there to get started working on something.
Yeah.
Like, what ticket should I pick up? What should I
Right.
work on?
There's
Like,
a
that
billion
should,
and a half
that's
start
that's the
buttons.
most important thing.
Yeah. There's a ton of start buttons, but I don't even know what the start buttons would do because, again, it's very clear that, as Nick mentioned, this is not a linear progression. So when I click start, does it move it from the ice box? Does it move to the ice box? Does it put it in its own epic? You know, I don't. That's another piece of UX that, as a designer, something that I try to think about is, what does the user expect this control interface to do? And if it's not wildly apparently obvious, it should be, like, just straight up, they should know what's going to happen when they click on something, you know, or at least have a pretty good indication.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that when you start something, I don't know if it's based off of points or if it's like how many points something has or like what kind of task it is. But some of them you'll hit finish and it will give you like other options like finish, and then it'll be deliver and then accept. And then some of them you'll hit finish and it will just like see if it does it with this. You'll just hit finish. You'll hit hello. You'll hit finish. Deliver. Oh, see, sometimes it will go from finish to deliver and it will just count it as done. It won't do it accept and reject. And I still don't know what denotes that because it's not like
Why?
I
Yeah.
That is
haven't
so
done it.
bad.
Yeah, I haven't done like a hot fix, so I don't know why they wouldn't like wait for acceptance.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that
What
that's
with? Maybe it's a chore? Finish. Yeah, if it's a chore, I just hit finish and it just goes away. And I was like, but if it's like a chore that's writing like a new test, then that needs to be looked over.
yeah, that's truly bizarre. Yeah.
So yeah, so
Again, like, what does it even do? Why am I clicking finish and then deliver? Because as far as we can tell visually in this view, there's no difference. Like, when you click deliver, the only thing that changes is you've asked me for a third time if I truly want to finish it. You know, it's kind of like finish. Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? And I'm sure it's doing something under the hood, but that makes it all the more confusing that I'm like, if I'm just clicking yes, yes, yes 3 times, why can't I just click yes once? You know?
yeah, and I don't know if it's just like based off of a certain style of like development, but yeah, if I'm finishing and then I'm delivering, then what am I doing? What do you think I'm doing when I'm finishing? Am I just like, yeah, it's done and it's sitting on my local, it's like repository, and then I'll hit deliver and then I'll send it? No, I'm literally pushing up to GitHub at certain intervals so that if I got hit by a bus, they'd still get it. So let's deliver.
Yeah, that is truly bizarre. I have no I have no advice there other than don't do that.
It's kind of this is all really interesting. That is all things that I have found really, really confusing about this. And I wasn't able to really put it into words before. Well, I hadn't because I didn't have anything to compare it to. Kind of Trello. I was trying to see if my Trello would open up because I use Trello, or I did for a while for my life because I'm very A-type personality. But yeah,
I did the same for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes
To do. Mow the lawn.
yeah, it feels good and it helps me like visualize what I should be doing and I'm not.
Yeah. And Trello is so like clear. Like when you're talking about expectations and like what something should do.
Yep.
From the first moment that I used Trello, it was super clear, kind of, all right, I press this button out of task and then I move it to wherever I want. And it's like all you need to know is those two things and it can be a really useful tool. Where this, it seems like you have to learn so much for it to be useful for you.
Yeah.
That it becomes really convoluted.
And I think that's also an example of where, specialized versus general tools. Everybody knows how to use a to-do list. Trello is basically an extension of a to-do list with some extra features and stuff baked in, but most people kind of get the concept. Whereas Agile, first of all, nobody really knows how Agile works, especially if you're using like Scrum or like a really, really opinionated Agile framework. And then add to it a little bit, because I mean, this isn't terrible, but you add a little bit of UX to an already complicated like mental schema, and now you're running into very complicated software that is very unclear in what it's trying to accomplish. Like, I don't know what this does that Trello or just a book with a to-do list couldn't do.
Hey, sorry, I have like, I don't know, I can't tell if you guys can see my camera, but I'm having like a small like animal meltdown where my dog won't and my cat is upset about the dog, and then she tried to like reach back and scratch me, and she got me a little bit. She hasn't like, usually she reaches back and she purposefully like goes next to my arm, but I moved. Look at that. Go talk to Dad. Come on, get out here. Come on.
Classic.
So sorry I came in late. The guys I'm gonna be working with for the next few months are all on Jira, which is like, yet another option here. I have to say I've never used Pivotal. I'm a little surprised to see that Pivotal is even like nastier looking than Jira.
I would see the same thing.
Yeah.
Jira. I guess at one point our company had used Jira because there's remnants of it, but I've never actually seen it. They went from Jira to Pivotal.
I mean, if anyone wants to look at it, I'm happy to like screen share or something. But I think just like you're describing, they just have a little more common sense about like whatever your purpose is. That's kind of all you can do on the screen at a time. They never try to show you like the big picture and the small picture all at once. And it's got its pros and cons. Don't get me wrong. I'm not necessarily a huge fan, but that's what they've been on for a long time. So I'm not gonna.
You can't find that. That's understandable.
And again, Jira is kind of taking a fairly simple concept, which is to-do lists and swim lanes, and you can do a lot more advanced stuff in Jira, like Kanban boards and burn lists and stuff like that, and mark things as retrospectives. But at the end of the day, again, it's just extending a very basic concept. Whereas with Pivotal, they're not really extending that concept. They're kind of just doing a pure just Scrum or Agile, view.
Yeah, I think the thing with Jira is like, from my experience, I don't know if it's still the same, but I remember when you're looking at the Kanban board view, when I was using it, it would automatically only show you the tasks that are assigned to you. So that even if they put like 1,000 things on the Kanban board, that immediately simplifies it enough so that it's discoverable.
And that's a great example of thinking about, okay, how is the user actually going to use this? It's great that we can show every ticket at once. It's cool that our software has that ability, but how are they actually going to use it, and what does the end user care about? 90% of the time, if I'm going to Jira, it's because I want to see where I stand, and then just giving me a quick, simple button to clear all the filters and letting me see everything is it focuses on what I really want to do, probably a good 70 to 90% of the time, and then provides me a quick, easy way to do what I want to do the other 10%,
Yeah, and so that's also an interesting thing to think about, is that so maybe Pivotal would have been more successful for me if that was just to see what my work is. They do have this, which I can close all of these and just see what I'm supposed to be working on. But I've taken on more of I'm like a project management role on my team, so there's only 2 of us, and I have to be able to see like what is coming down the pipeline, what are the things, what are the features that we're looking at, like where they're at. It's just like I can't get that, like for a management standpoint, like this is a nightmare. It's hard to tell what we have coming up and like what we should be working on.
It's strange that like I would expect that from selecting, I didn't notice before, but from selecting the things on the left-hand toolbar, that those would open new screens, but instead they
Yes.
just add to the current screen, and it becomes even harder to figure out what you
Here, let me put more stuff on your screen.
Yeah, and I was so confused by this when I first opened it up, because I would like click on something and sometimes it would look like nothing had changed, but it just had tacked it on at the end.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What is labels?
We should have recorded this and like sell this feedback to Pivotal for like or something. This is a pretty good teardown, I feel like.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Colin is actually recording this, so maybe we'll send it
There you
along
go.
and ask for a bounty.
Yeah, 100%. Split it.
So this is another general UX principle where if there is already a very well-defined like call it like a paradigm, like a side nav bar, that's well defined. That's been around since the beginning of the internet. Don't reinvent that, because nobody's going to know what it's supposed to do. If you have a side nav bar, I'm assuming that when I click it, I'm navigating. And if you're going to do something crazy like append something, then number one, it's unexpected. Number two, I'm probably going to continue to do it for a while because it's muscle memory. And if you guys have ever heard of the book Don't Make Me Think by, I want to say Steve Kruger.
Yeah, I'm reading that right now.
Yes, no, and that's, if you want to boil the entire book down to a single phrase, it's use existing paradigms. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Or at least if you're going to do it, one of his points is make it super clear. And so I think like making this blue doesn't make it very clear. But when I have a couple things selected, I tend to think it would be a little bit grayed, like maybe a little grayed, or like a little inset, so that I know that, oh, this one, and this one.
Yep.
But just having the color doesn't really help me.
A checkbox is a very common paradigm to show that something's selected, you know, something.
Yeah, instead of it just being blue. Because I can remember what was blue before when I first started using it. So I was like, maybe it's always been blue. Yeah. Did anybody else have some thoughts on? Because that's kind of a good overview of what I know about Pivotal. They have other things like analytics and stuff. I've never looked at it. It's not useful because it's not tracking the way that it should be. And there's only 2 of us. So I don't know what burn up is. There's no explanation. So.
Yeah, do we want to switch over to Monday and maybe do some comparison and see where they could have been more successful, or maybe they even have some other shortcomings too we can talk about?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what Monday looks like. This is, well, if I opened it the first time. So Monday has different workspaces. This is our SN engineering team workspace. There's also a couple of different ones for different teams at our company. So it's kind of nice that we're on the same thing as the rest of our company. So the producers, if anybody for management wanted to look at what we're doing, they don't have to go to a different application, a different tool to do so. And it also is helpful because sometimes I like to check in and see like what they're up to and how they're organizing it to better see what things that we can do for our own application, which they also use as a tool. But anyway, so everybody has a workspace. It was very easy to create a new workspace just for us. Like managing the workspace and everything makes sense. Oh, actually, I've never thought to change the icon. I want to make it a brain one day. And there's a way to make them private. So I've made our like main boards private, just so that we don't have a bunch of producers who are like, why aren't you working on my feature? So to explain, this was so much more useful because there's a large range of things that we could create for ourselves that Pivotal would not allow us to, which is like the new idea board, which is public. Like if people have an idea and they want to like put it out there, before they had to put it in a Slack, which would put it into a Google Doc, which would then I would have to manually go in and like copy over to Pivotal. And now they can put it, they can enter it in here, and it will tell me who requested it. People can vote on it if they really like it, or if they come to request something that's already there. And then I can kind of mark with a status if we're like looking at doing it. So I found this to be so useful because it's so easy for them to come in and just put it in, and I can see it in a view with all of our other things. So that's like a public facing board that we created. And then our private boards, we have our backlog, things that have been prioritized. I was able to make custom statuses based off of like, are we researching it? Are we doing a design, which is like a very no frills design? And then are we scoping it out, and is it ready to be put into our sprint? The way that they do epics in Monday is that we tag them, and so we can just click it and it will show me like all of the different tickets that are with it, which I guess is kind of similar to like how epics is done in Pivotal, but I don't know why this is just so much easier for me to take in. I don't know if it's just because it's in a column and so I can kind of see, and they're different colors. I think that might be it. It's like literally not that much different. It's just that it's in a column all together and I can see them next to each other and they're different colors. So I at a glance can be like, okay, that's staff notes. This is also staff notes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It looks like you can just look at this board and for each task, first of all, it's much easier to see the individual tasks because they have their entire row. But for each task, I can know exactly what's going on with it right away, and I just read it left to right. So it's like, oh, that's really easy to see where that task is at and what it's a part of that epic, and like you say, the colors kind of show you what group they might be a part of, and it's easier to associate them that way because kind of hard to read, but at least I can associate them by color. So it tells you everything you need to know very clearly, and since it's kind of spread out across that whole row, makes it easy to follow along. Oh, cool.
Yeah, and you can change the sizing of the columns, so if you wanted to be able to read them more clearly, which I found to be like pretty intuitive on like how I would do it. I mean, it's a little bit weird because I would imagine that this would, but it's easy. I can get back on track pretty quick.
I think that's another great example to drive home the example of existing patterns. Almost every table you probably ever interacted with on the internet allows resizable columns. Some of them, allow to reorder the columns. And it's very, very clear that a table represents a list of items that, as you can see, maybe can be added to, and like Nick was saying, I think that pop of color on the status really makes it very, very clear that something should draw your attention more than another. One of the things we talked about with Pivotal is like, it's just all there. And it's very hard to disambiguate like what's important from what's not. Here, it's pretty easy to tell where things are at,
Yeah, and there's a lot of space. Like the space in it really helps me read things much quicker, I find. Like I find Pivotal to feel really small and closed in, and then Monday, just all of the columns have enough space that I can very quickly visually differentiate between what isn't like all the things in the owner column, like the point estimates, the epics, like it's just so much easier to look at. I don't feel so stressed.
Yeah. I had whenever I was kind of coming up as like a front-end developer, I had a mentor, and I would, I design a feature and I come back for feedback, and almost every single time without fail, he always had at least one piece of advice and feedback that was always the exact same. And he was always like, put more space into it. You know, I think we as developers and engineers, we typically want everything to be very, very efficient. You know, we want things to just, but sometimes efficiency is readability, and readability is almost always related to space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Trying to think of what else. This is kind of the same as up here. It's just like general versus the things that we're like focusing on. When you're making, they have these things called conversation, which they have updates. And it's just like you can put, I put notes about things that have been said about it. I'll link sometimes like Slack conversations about a bug. They have info boxes, which I find to be a little bit weird. I guess it's just to keep files. But you can also keep files and updates, and I kind of like to visually keep them all together. And then an activity log of like what has happened to it, which is really cool. So if something if something's moved around, I can like see who's done it and when. And if somebody puts like an update on a task, or they call them items, and I go, is it here? Yeah, to notifications, it will tell me like what things that are due, and it will tell me if something has been moved over. Or if I've been mentioned. There's like a way to see a view of it, but I'm like not seeing it at the moment. So maybe that's a little bit of a weird UX thing that I can't just see it as a page, which is a little weird. Another kind of like weird hiccup on it is that I keep seeing, I'll like sometimes see things up here that that will be on other people's boards. Maybe it looks like maybe they fixed it, but somebody had added me to a board without my permission, and then I started seeing updates about it. I'm like, I'm not a part of this. That was annoying. But that has nothing to do with the board itself. I find it so helpful because Pivotal won't show you what has happened on an item, and it won't update you when something's updated. You kind of have to just click on each one of them and check them, which is not very helpful, especially like if you're trying to manage a project.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, because our sprint planning board is also very like Pivotal, they try to be too helpful by saying like, hey, here's an estimate of what you can do, and then we'll put it in your own sprint, and then you can change your sprint weeks. Like, we find it much more helpful to kind of, we try to release on Mondays, and so we kind of know we'll do 2 releases if things go well, and we'll try to put our releases, order things into releases, and when we think they're going to be done, and then we'll close ones that have already been released. So like you can, come on, there we go. You can like close them, and so you can still see what you've released and look at it and see what's been done, but you can visually just show yourself like what you need to be doing this week, which is so nice to be like, okay, it's not all of this muck and everything. It's like literally just this, and this is where it's at.
I just saw a piece of UX I don't like. Did anybody else see it?
Yeah, this seems like it should close
that
it.
little popping button is horrible.
Yeah.
A big no.
You think you could just click on the title, it should do the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. When people go over things, you shouldn't move things out of the way, because I don't have a great because they're not going to click what they think they want to click.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very confusing. And it's hard because you have to hover over to like, and you can move. Also, when you go to move these, they close all of them so that, which I guess is helpful if you had a lot of stuff in them. But
So how do you reopen them?
They have like the same, they just have less to look at.
What so like when you go to drag them and they all collapse, how do you get out of that?
You have to let go. So you like click it, and then it shows you just them as that, and then once you drop it, it comes back up. Which I found I mean, I feel like I recovered pretty quickly from that, but the first time I did it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like you click, you expect that you're now holding the thing, but it's actually flipped off to the other side of the page.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like just like a close all button would, and like letting you do that if you want to, would
Yeah.
solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I go to like the Jira or the Trello. You know, when you go to drag something, they don't rearrange your entire board. They just say, "Oh, you're holding this object," and they kind of bump things out of the way as you move it up.
Yeah.
I can see where they're trying to be helpful here, but it's definitely when a user clicks, when a user is expecting a certain interaction, I'm expecting to drag, I'm expecting to hover over something, and you go moving elements out of the way. I'm not going to say never, but very rarely is that a seamless experience. It's typically pretty jarring.
Yeah. I definitely found it jarring. I really felt like I had done something wrong at first, and then as I moved it around, I was like, when I was afraid to like let it go because I was afraid of what I was doing. And I was afraid it was gonna be like a trash can or something, where you just like
Right.
let it go and it's gone forever. Oh, that is like a nice little thing that it does for you is that if I was to delete something, it has a little bubble that comes up here that counts down and gives me a chance to come up and be like, oh no, and I can like reset it, and then it has, I don't know where it lives, but apparently it has like a recycle box somewhere where if I really decided that that was a bad idea, I could go into that box and restore it. Which if I deleted it in Pivotal, it would never tell me I deleted it, and it would be gone forever.
Pivotal
So
say, "Okay, I hope you know what you're doing."
yeah, so that's like one, but it's not something where it's like I can't do anything else. It's just like a little tiny countdown timer at the top that's like, hey, just so you know, if that was a bad idea, I'm here. Instead of it being like it grays out the entire screen, it's like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Do you want to finish? Do you want to finish? Do you want to finish?
Are you sure that you're finished?
One of the things that stuck out about Pivotal was like how hard it was to discover, like out of the discoverability of the different features and stuff. How was that different on Monday? Like what did they do that made it easier for you to figure out like what you can do with the platform?
I'm trying to remember what I was doing because I did watch a video on all the different things that you could do with Monday, but I had started making boards before that. One of the things that was really helpful was that if you are creating a new board, you can do a blank one, and you can do new from template. And so that was super helpful because if I had just a blank board in front of me, like that's something that Trello can be. Trello does have its own templates as well, but when I first opened Trello, it was like a little overwhelming. So they have them for software development, and so they have these different types of boards like bugs queue, feature backlog, and so I was able to kind of start with a template and then modify it. But because it had a template already, and the template was so easy to like to see what's on it, it was kind of easy to discern like what what are the different things I could do with it. And it's just kind of intuitive, like, hey, like that has a little this has a little thing that kind of makes it clear that I can click it. This little plus button is that you can actually do an update on the status. But like it made it very clear. And then after that, it was kind of clear, like, okay, so then I can add and edit a label. Very clear, I click that. And then when I hover over, it has an X. I'm like, okay, I can like delete them. I can change the color. I can move them. It just, the way that the paradigms, as you were saying, on how to, like, made it very clear on how I could change it. It was very familiar. So like even this, like, oh, smiley face, that's emojis. Oh, like here's all the emojis I can put on it. And then, oh, here's a, I don't know what this, oh, sort. Okay, I don't want to do that. Oh, how do I make you go away?
Clear?
That's a weird UI thing. I've never done this before, and I don't know how to make it go away.
Clear maybe on the left.
Clear. Okay. Thank you. So I was able to muddle through pretty well. And when I opened up a new board and created it, it had text bubbles that were like new item, and then it gave me a little bit of stuff about like create a new item, a little bit of stuff about what integration and automations were, and just kind of like pointed out things on this page.
Like tooltips, kind of. Is that what you?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a tooltips kind of where it would like there'd be like a more colorful version of this that came up and had like a maybe 1 or 2 sentences about what it was, just to highlight the things that I could do, which Pivotal didn't do, which kind of was super helpful in figuring out how to do it. And then there's such a large swath of what you can do on Monday that when I wanted to start getting crazy with it, I looked up YouTube videos, which they had a lot of people who had like worked through like how like their development team uses it, like how you use it for Zendesk, which is, so that's how I was able to. I felt like there wasn't really that much about Pivotal out there. Nobody was doing like a hip, cool video about how they use Pivotal the way that they've had done for Monday.
Well, the truth is, if they're competing in the same space as Pivotal, which it seems like they're trying to, and in the same space as Jira, and in the same space as Trello, and you're making the UX mistakes that they're making, they're probably not wrong for this world. So,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you guys have any thoughts about what, like in the UX community, like thoughts on introducing someone to a new tool that they're using? Is there something that you guys like them to use the most, or is it kind of like a mix of things to help them through? Or
you're talking about designing the UX that somebody will be using, or if you are onboarding somebody to a new tool?
Like onboarding, yeah. It's like you've just opened up the tool for the very first time and just made an account. Like, what is the thing that people usually, or things that you have found have worked in the past? What have you done?
And just to clarify, this is for introducing somebody to a tool that I have not designed and I have no say over the UX.
Oh no, you have, like, if you have a say over the UX, it's like, say that you make this, say that you are designing the onboarding process for a new user, and like say for Monday, or something similar, and they've just opened up their board for the first time, and now they have to figure out what to do about it. Like, what are things that you have used in the past or suggested in the past as like a UX experience to help guide them through it? Is it like, are you guys on the video train? Like, we make a video that's like, hi, welcome to Monday. Here's all the stuff you can do. Or are you guys like just making it really obvious, or helpful tooltips, hovering over?
So I like the idea of kind of creating UI elements that are more or less self-explanatory and can get out of the way if you want them to. So I'm not a big fan of like entering a new piece of software and having to watch a 5-minute video, because again, if I have to watch a 5-minute video, it's probably not very intuitive. But for instance, say you didn't understand, what these little navigation links underneath workspaces, pretend you didn't know what those were. A simple little box underneath all of them with a little X that says, don't show me, ever again, hide this. That says something along the lines of, these are your workspaces. You can group different boards by different workspaces, and then maybe you learn more links. So if I want to know more about how this piece works, I can. Otherwise, it can get out of my way and I can just keep working.
Okay.
I find that that's generally a pretty useful paradigm, because again, you can't assume that just because I'm new, I've never seen the software before. And sometimes, like me personally, I just like to go in and start clicking stuff until I figure out how it works. So, you could argue that's more or less good, but that's one thing I'm a big fan of, is actually putting in the UI tooltips and boxes that say what things are, but then they can get out of your way if you're a power user or you've seen it before or you just don't care and you just start clicking around.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's definitely something that I find when we're making new things for our own for our own platform at work, is that I have a hard time trying to figure out how to train somebody on the new feature. I try to make it as like as obvious as possible. And for like things that are used mostly internally, we'll have like a meeting about it, but I don't like those meetings. Not everybody comes to them. Like the release emails, people don't read, and so like I'm always trying to find a way to like let people know about it without it being like me emailing them or like slacking them and saying, "Hey, don't forget, you've got this new thing you
Yeah.
can use." Yeah, cool.
There's also, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. So if anybody else has anything else to say, I don't.
Well, I'm happy to hear it, because yeah, I literally am on day one of my UI UX class. I know Katie, and Katie just graduated from NSS. I'm not sure everybody else's background. I know that Nick, you were really interested in it, and you seem to be really knowledgeable. Are you doing UI UX stuff right now?
No, not really. I'm a full stack developer, so like I've worked on both sides of the stack, but to be honest, like I haven't studied it. So it's more, yeah, I'm interested in it from the perspective of just learning and trying to make better products, really.
Yeah. And then Michael, do you have a background, or are you also a full stack, or?
I'm sort of the full stack in the like entrepreneurship, making terrible tech companies that do whatever. So I'll admit I'm half watching this just to see if like one day is something I might be interested in using at some point. But
Oh,
also do a fair bit of UX when just designing like the MVP of products and stuff. So a little bit of everything.
nice. Well, you really sold me on your company.
I'm in between companies, which is why I'm salty.
Oh,
Right now I'm doing the tech consulting.
I was like, wow. It's like one of those dates you go on where like the person just pretends not to be interested, and you're like, oh, well, no, I want your terrible company to pick me.
Yeah.
And then Colin, are you around? What is your background?
Yeah, I don't have any like formal like education in UI UX, but at my company I work very hands-on with our designer to basically build out the MVP designs of our current app. So
Cool. Well, Adam, you're talking a lot because you're our resident like knowledge base.
It is true. It's something I love and I'm passionate about. I actually work with Nick. I'm a full stack developer as well. But if given the opportunity between talking to databases and talking to CSS, I would always choose to talk to CSS.
Nice, yeah. I feel similarly. I'm a full stack, the fullest of stacks, because there's only two of us. But and then I graduated from NSS last year in October, and I did the full stack day cohort. But I've always been interested in UI and UX, and my company needs it, and so it's a great opportunity to try to fill that role and see if I like it.
Yeah.
Or if it's something I have any like aptitude for. So
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm about to have to leave along with Nick to go join our morning stand up. But the last little bit of advice that I would throw out there is, this is what I did and where I learned a lot of my stuff. Find somebody that you really trust their opinion on design, or that they've proven they can build really nice designs, kind of like the mentor I was talking about, and just send them stuff. Just send them like, hey, I designed this, tear it apart. Like, tell me what I need to do differently. And eventually you'll kind of start hearing those same little pieces of feedback, and you'll start to internalize that, and then you'll stop making those mistakes, and voila, you become a better designer.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks. That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks, Sydney, for like showing off all these two tools, and for for being able to like bring in what your company is working on. That was really cool.
Yeah, happy to do
If
it.
you guys, yeah, awesome. If you guys have the time, you'll get a little, or actually probably already got a notification to fill out a follow-up. No pressure to do it. And also like, you can make it one sentence or you can make it paragraphs, like whatever is useful for you in there. And also if you want to continue the conversation there, just like add it in there. It's just a nice way to kind of have our archive of knowledge that we're building up in PennyU. So
Cool. And Michael,
Have
if you have any other questions about Monday, let me know. I'm actually it has like some sticking points, but I'm like pro Monday. The integrations are Zendesk doesn't work quite the way I think it should, but yeah, just let me know if you want to talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Thanks, guys. See y'all
Thanks,
later.
y'all.
See you around.
Bye. Thanks, guys.